to how your career started, and how did you know that music was going to be the thing for you?
That's a great question. Why are we called to do the thing that we're doing, right? That's a really a deep question. I'll try to say it as succinctly as possible. I think there was this yearning for me since very young to be heard, to express. There was something kind of like I wouldn't call it a black hole, but like a vortex within me that's just full of feelings and wants to be expressed audibly or in performance way, something. Yet my skills weren't good enough for what I'm hearing to match what was going on, if that makes sense. So so ensued a lifetime of training, of honing my instrument such that what I'm hearing and imagining is closer to what's being expressed. And yeah, and what happened with the launching of the soundtrack career was I was at Berklee College of Music, and I happened to write this song in Mongolian on the guitar. I tuned it in fourths, and I was just pretending it was this kind of a folk instrument, and I recorded this song, and I happened to show it to someone who was working at the ensemble office with me. It's ensemble office is where you can rent out instruments and rent out practice spaces for the students for free, but you book it. And so, you have a lot of time waiting in between the rush hours. So I happened to show him, and he said, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly the voice we're looking for. This concert we're doing in Boston Symphony Hall, opening for Alvin Silvestri, and there's going to be the video game orchestra and all of that." And I thought, oh, great. And so I did my whole, Mongolian voice thing. And someone happened to see me there, Ciprian Kostin, who's the founder of Masterpiece Experience, and he invited me to do some recordings at Berklee and to test me out, probably, and then he invited me to do the Masterpiece Experience in Romania, and that video got now I think 18 million views or something like that. So it kind of really helped launch everything. And then people were like, "Oh, why don't you move to LA? It's perfect for what you do." And it's ironic because when I first came to America, I came because I wanted to study American music, and it turns out that people are more interested in exotic things, right? Yeah. So it's a brief kind of synopsis.
Oh, that's very interesting story. And yeah, I think sometimes things just work out in a way that we didn't expect them to. We go to a place for something and then end up something else greater happens that we could never. I mean, something that we never thought would happen. Like you said, you went to the States to study American music, but in return, the Americans wanted you for you, which is something very, very unique in my opinion. So speaking of that, you've established such a reputation when it comes to, whenever someone hears your voice, they know it's you. I mean, at least I do. And so how did you find this unique voice of yours? And because like you said, there's so many options when it comes to being a vocalist. Did you pick what you were good at and then continue to hone it, like you said, or so how? I mean, like, so to cut the question short, how did you know that this was your voice? Like, because you have so many options out there.
It's a funny thing when you say this is my voice. Probably you're referring to the kind of ethnic wailing kind of sound, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
That's part of the, void or the space that happened to be in the industry, an Asian wailing voice. So I've kind of stepped into it in, I can think of it in Ikigai, the idea of Ikigai. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's the essentially the meeting place of what you're good at, what the world needs, what you're passionate about, and what pays. Does that make sense? So in that intersection of these, you can look at it as these Venn diagram kind of a thing, and you can find a sweet spot, you know. So I look at it in that way. But even though that's my main, what I'm sort of, you know, well, I wouldn't say known for, but is kind of my go-to. I still have studied so many different styles and so many different voices, right? And sometimes in one album or in one soundtrack, I'll have to do 5-6 different voices, right? So I think versatility has been a huge ally for me, actually, and musical curiosity. And there's a quote I read a while ago. It said, "Seek and master the complicated, and you'll find that the air is more, you know, rarefied there. You know, go the extra mile." And so I try to do that, precisely that.
I see. So then you mentioned about having to do various sort of voices in, like, maybe in a single track. So so how does it work with composers? Do you go in and do your own thing, or is there like a specific instructions, more like a guideline of what the composer's trying to achieve?
Yeah, that depends on the composer and the project, you know. Some composers will treat me like a synthesizer, you know. They'll be like, hold it straight, you know, until beat 3, put a reverb, no, a vibrato, a slow vibrato on beat, you know, 4, and, you know, and use this tone, breathy, you know, you feel literally like a living synthesizer, which is great because you know, it's kind of giving control. You could, you know, and they called it, you know, like it's like driving a Mustang or something like that. About that analogy, I like the idea of the analogy of a synthesizer better. But and then some composers, you know, just do your Uyanga thing, whatever that means. Which I appreciate because it just gives me creative freedom to experiment, but which also, if I'm by myself, it takes me longer because then I need to guess what maybe they need, and that way I need to know more about the project, what they're going for. So I tend to maybe send them a lot of different versions. But if I'm in the studio with them, just by, you know, virtue of them being in the control room, and they can immediately say, oh yeah, more of that, less of this, there's less kind of experimentation going. So it really is a spectrum between these two extremes, I would say.
Okay, that's very interesting because, like, I thought you had such a distinct voice, and like I mean, given the privilege to work with you, I would say do your own thing because your voice is, yeah, really, really unique. Like I mentioned earlier, as soon as you hear, you know, it's Uyanga. There's no denying it. And yeah, I mean, if I were to have that privilege, I would say do your own thing, and I wouldn't alter it in any way because it's just so unique.
Oh,
but I do. Yeah, but I do get what you mean because sometimes composers, they look at you as a unique instrument, and they have like a very specific way in terms of how they want the sound come up of this unique instrument. Hence, that's why you said they had very specific instructions, like, you know, hold it long, vibrato, etc.
Yeah, especially when it comes to music for media, because it's not music for its own sake. It's music to support a storytelling, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it shouldn't take away too much attention from the dialogue or something, right? So there's a lot of nuances to consider, actually. So it's interesting, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is a very important factor to consider, I guess. Like you said, it's not just about doing what you want to do. I mean, that's fine for your originals and things like that, but when you're in a supporting role, then obviously you're hired to kind of support something that's of a bigger picture.
Exactly.
I see. Wow. Okay. Well, it's nice because your voice actually fits. So despite having its distinct sound, like the whole wailing thing and the whole Mongolian thing, like I think it suits so many different scenarios. It can be used to in a war scenario, it can use to be in an uplifting scenario. It could be used in a very sorrowful, melancholic scenario. It's just so versatile, despite how specific it is. It's just amazing.
There's yeah, a lot of the work that I do, it's for fight scenes and, you know, scary scenes or intense scenes, just epic scenes in general. But, you know, also there's a lot of softer, ethereal, childish, you know, young voices. I just wrote a lullaby in Russian with this company called Hexany Audio. And we wrote just a beautiful Russian lullaby, you know, and it's a completely different voice from the ethnic wailing. You know, it's very beautiful, clean sound, and it's for a video game too. So I think to segue into another topic is longevity, right? I think the versatility has been crucial for just longevity and variety of work that can come.
Yeah, that's very true, especially for the for your career, which is in most cases in that supporting role. And I think versatility does matter a lot. Because you want to be able to cover as much ground as you can, but I think you've done that successfully. But at the same time, I have to congratulate you because you've done that in your own way. Because, like I said, when I hear your voice, I know really it's you, and it's just amazing how someone can achieve that kind of level. So congratulations on being able to do that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, if anyone practiced as much as I did, I think anyone can do it. But still hear me, yes.
Nice.
I think the voice is a particular instrument that's very interesting because it's the first instrument, and then it's the drum, right? So it's the instrument that you use your body to make sound with. So it's immediately recognizable, right? And if it comes to classical voice, you know what kind of a sound you're getting, but when it comes to some of the less Western classical or different world traditional vocals, there's the timbre of the voice, the character, the soulfulness of the voice is very different, and you can hear a person's even state of being, what they're thinking, all of it, so it's it's an instrument that doesn't lie, I think.
Yeah, it is, and you can really hear you can sort of tell when things come from the heart, and it's like you say, you can't lie with your voice. You can fake it, but in the long run,
it's so true. It's been such a lifelong query for me, like curiosity. Why, when you hear two singers sing the same note, right? Why? They can be both in tune and well-produced notes, but why one singer, you hear them, it's like cool. The other one, you've seen these moments where everybody starts clapping, right? As soon as they open their mouth. What is that? So it's been a lifelong kind of inquiry into myself and into the different traditions of the world and practices to see what is that, and then there are different interesting responses to that. For example, in music from India, they have something called unstruck sound, apparently, on top of the struck. It's the sound you don't hear, right?
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of things to look at. It applies to instrumentalists. I know you're a guitar player, right?
Yeah.
So that applies too. It's the feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think I think, like you said, it's those sounds that you don't hear. And I believe those are that's sort of like the vibe that comes from the heart. And I think people feel that even though they don't hear it. And I think maybe a part of it also has to do with like a habit of an artist, like for example, for a guitarist, he or she might bend a note in a very specific way, and he does that he or she does that every single time he plays like that note or something like that. So maybe it's those subtle differences between artists that kind of help define who is who, even though you're just hearing the same note. And which may sound similar on the surface, but then if you really analyze it, I think there's ways of kind of distincting who played which note. I think. But it's like you said, there are tons of theories as to how why that is. But yeah, I think there's no straightforward, clear-cut answer to that question.
I mean, even if you think about it in a very analytical way, right? For example, what makes a piece of, formed melody interesting, right? You can look at it as, okay, so, or let's even simplify it further. You have 4 beats, right? Doom, 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 doom. And then you're like thinking, okay, well, that's okay. You got used to that. The next 4, you introduce a little syncopation. That tricks the mind into thinking, oh, I'm surprised. So it snags the mind. And then if you repeat that, okay, I'm comfortable in the repetition. Oh, there's a new change, right? And then these little like that little syncopation or that little note bend are these little ear candies, right? That hook the attention to a given performance. And I often think about that. What is the function of grab? Because in a way we're in the how to grab attention in a way, right? Because as musicians we need to be heard. It's being heard that is the function of making music, right? Or the goal.
Yeah, I think as much as people say, as often as people say that they produce music to make themselves, to express themselves, I think the truth is all of us want to be heard as musicians. We don't just produce music for the sake of producing. At least for most of us. So, like, you are right in terms when you said, like, it is to be heard.
Yeah. At the same time, like you said, totally agree with you there around. It's also a personal practice, right? And in a lot of traditions, they say, the function, someone listening in, it doesn't really matter because it's my own practice. When I'm performing, it's just, oh, you happen to be there during my practice to myself, to my craft, to the divine, right? So it's all of it at the same time, like life is messy and it's many layered,
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Okay, well, so the next thing we're going to talk about is your collaboration with EastWest Sounds, and it's such a, it's such an amazing thing to see, like a voice with a plugin. So, to be honest, this plugin, which I've had the privilege to use, is such a game changer. And how did this come about to happen? Actually, this whole thing.
Well, it's produced by Nick Phoenix and Doug, the head of EastWest, was also co-producer, and Nick invited me to record on the Two Steps from Hell albums and also to produce the vocal sample library. And at the time, I happened to be in negotiations with a few different companies, and I just liked the way EastWest were approaching it, the way they were willing to go all out, even producing a trailer and just their website and everything. It just looked super high quality, and so I went with them. Yeah, and super grateful by the dedication to the team, to excellence, attention to detail, and they've been just incredibly supportive and incredibly dedicated to excellence, sheer excellence.
Oh, yeah, and I think all that is really showing in the trailer. And I remember, like, I think it was like 2 years ago when I saw the trailer for the first time. I was like, shit. And I had to. Yeah, it's
makes a trailer for their, like an actually filmed trailer for their back. I thought, wow, Although I'll tell you a funny, I guess, anecdote around the performance. I'm no actor, but they asked me to look very mean and very witch-like, and I, and I would make these mean faces, and they'd be like, "More, look like you're about to kill people," and so I'm sneering so much, and I thought, I don't know. Sneering, is kind of inviting, but You know, it is a kind of a, like you said, good for these epic scenes. So I think it turned out really amazing.
Yeah, it is. Like the trailer, I think it's probably one of the best that I've seen from EastWest, to be honest. And it's so nice, like a movie on its own, that the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the way they've done the trailer is so interesting that it just shows you the possibility of what you can create with that plugin. So I think they've done that commercial so successfully that I think they probably swayed many people their way thanks to that commercial that you guys done together.
Yeah, I think so. And it just shows, oh, we're willing to go that extra level, you know,
Yeah.
to deliver a product that's just on the highest level possible. And I think it just shows the dedication, you know, because it will be easy to be like, okay, we recorded now, just, you know, get it. They didn't have to make us such a, you know, create a trailer from scratch. You know, they could have not done it. So I'm very grateful, and yeah.
Yeah, it's good that they did, because it certainly does the quality of this plugin justice. And yeah, it would be a shame if they didn't do it, because probably a lot, I mean, way less people would know about it if not for the trailer. So so thankfully they did it. I mean, at least I had no idea that EastWest Sounds existed until I saw that trailer. So you could kind of tell the gravity of the, you know, of the trailer itself. So, and then from then it sort of made me see that, oh wow, there's this company around, and then apart from this amazing plugin, they have so many other things. So I think that trailer didn't just bring justice to the plugin that you produced together with them, it also brought justice to the rest. And like I said, it's one of my favorite sort of teasers and trailers from EastWest Sounds, because it's so amazing. Like I said, it's like a movie. You watch it again and again. Watch it to the point where, you know, my family was like, "Can you just stop watching that thing?" And I was like, "No, I can't. It's so good. It's like watching a movie, your favorite movie, over and over again. You know, it's the only difference is that it's just a couple of minutes long, that movie."
Wow, thank you for sharing your impressions.
Yeah.
I'll be sure to share this interview with them. I think it'll be fun for them to hear this.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll all go like, "Oh, that trailer you watched like a million times." Yeah. So then, like, how does it feel to hear your voice sort of reinterpreted in other composers' songs? Because obviously, when you recorded those verses and those different techniques, composers have the liberty to sort of use it and interpret it their own way. So how does it make you feel to hear your voice being used in so many different ways?
It's the best, of course. You know, Robot Uyanga is doing the the work on this. It expands what's possible, right? And there's a Danish film that sent me, you know, like their opening scene with Voices of the Empire, and I thought, oh wow, I would never, you know, imagine all that. And then there's these Japanese producers who are making completely different style, right? So each country, and so I think it brings people together in that you're using the same plugin, but you're doing it, approaching it in such different styles, so you see the diversity of imagination and region to region also, right? And so yeah. And now for your track, I noticed you just sent it to me, but I'd love to hear it after our call. Yeah.
All right, yeah, do it if you have the time. And yeah, it's just one of the singles that I plan to launch like in the next couple of days. In fact, tonight I'm filming the video for it, like the whole guitar playthrough of the track. And yeah, I'm kind of excited. And I'm actually very privileged that EastWest allowed me to use the plugin along with others. And like, but yours, I didn't expect them to give me access to demo the other plugins, because I was like, please, Voices of the Empire, and they were like, Yeah, okay. You can have it for like a short while, like try to do it justice, you know. So hopefully, you know, I've done it justice, and then hopefully they think so, you know. Yeah,
Oh, can't wait to
yeah,
hear. Uh-huh.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, but it's an absolute game changer. It's such an amazing plugin, and it's just one plugin that is so different from the rest because you have tons of choir plugins, you have orchestral plugins, but then there's only one Uyanga Bold plugin, and it's really amazing. It's really amazing. So actually, one question I wanted to ask, because in the plugin you have phrases. So does it matter to you that those phrases are used sort of maybe out of context because they may use it for the sound. Like for example, when I use the plugin, I use it for the sound, and so those phrases fit in with the vibe that I'm trying to get with the song. Does it matter to you that those phrases are sort of used out of its original meaning?
Not at all. Go ahead and expand what's possible even more, right? Because when we were making the specific phrases, those were just in the moment creations, you know, and we were hoping people would experiment and go beyond what we were doing at EastWest Studios then, you know,
Yeah.
so yeah.
All right, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yeah, I think it's good to have that sort of open mind, because I think some people, when they produce something, they expect people to use it in a specific way, and they think when people use it out of context, they get upset. And it's good to know that you're approaching this with such an open mind. And like you said, thanks to that, people are able to sort of push the boundaries of what you may even thought was possible with your voice.
Exactly, you know, that's the whole thing, you know, going beyond what we thought was possible. You said it
Yeah.
right. You know, it's very, very important for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree. Okay, well, so we're gonna move on to composition. Obviously you write your own songs, you have your own live sort of recording thing going as well. So how does it, where do you start when it comes to writing? Because you've got such a powerful instrument that's your voice, but you've also got the liberty to use any other instrument you want. And so what's your starting point every time you start writing a song?
It really depends on the purpose. Why am I writing it, right? If it's for a specific video game, for example, the Lullaby we talked about, right? There was a whole universe and mythology to the world, right? And a specific character who was evil but had a difficult childhood. So this was a kind of a redemption song. When you overkill him, you kind of play this lullaby, and you realize, oh no, he was a kid that was abused after all, kind of a thing, right? So there's a whole kind of a story that we're supporting there, right? But if I'm doing a looping experience, and then I'm just doing whatever I feel like sometimes, that's pure inspiration. And if I'm this year I started scoring, and so there it's very much supporting the dialogue that's going on, right? Okay, so this person has this kind of a theme, right? And this person has this theme. How can they interact and this kind of thing? So just really thinking about the reason for this note and this to tone and things like that. Yeah, this is a lot of things to consider, and I find it actually easier to write for purpose in order to tell a story, further the emotion, right? Because there's so many things to think about. For example, okay, so say you have an emotional scene, right? But you might know information about the character that's going to come later in the episode. Do you reveal it by he might say, for example, something innocent sounding, but if you say something ominous, right, like music ominous, maybe you're hinting at the person's true agenda, right? So there's all these things to consider, which I really love considering. But that's more composition, I think, and songwriting wise, it can sometimes start from the melody, sometimes from poetry, right? The lyrics. So it really kind of depends. Yeah. And I hear a lot of great writers say, you know, it's the most excruciating thing in the world to write, right? Yeah, there's a certain truth there. But I think it's also a muscle to kind of keep practicing. You know, at Berkeley there was this lyric writing class, and they used to tell us to write 20 minutes of this exercise where you take a word of the day and you describe it and using all the, or you not describe it, you just brain dump from all the senses that you have: taste, touch, smell, hear, and what was the taste, touch,
smell. What else? What other senses do we have?
See.
Oh yeah! Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Brain pause, and also the kinesthetic, right? Just the feeling of where I am, kind of a thing. So you describe it, and the idea is that the more you put these kind of sense descriptions, you know, it's much easier to say, oh, I feel cold versus I feel a shiver run down my back, right? It just feels immediately way more, you can feel it way more, right? So in that sense, and I like to think about how can I describe something using as many metaphors as possible, but it's for the lyrics is I think very potent.
Yeah.
A lot to describe.
Yeah, I think it's a never-ending topic, and obviously composition there's so many ways of approaching it, and there's no one way to do it. And so speaking of this, what then, I like to ask this question a lot because everyone has a different answer. So at what point do you consider a song complete then? Because obviously this is something that you can actually go on and on and on and on. And even after a song is done and submitted and recorded and released, we feel like, oh, actually there was something there that I could have done better. So, but at the very first stage, what sort of gives you the impression that the song is ready to go to the public?
Oh, that's an interesting question. More often than not, it's the deadline. It needs to go to the mixer, right? Yeah. Or their approval by the powers that be. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think intuition comes into play a lot, where we just know, oh, I've hit like and I wouldn't say gold, but this feels fairly resolved, right? This you know, but there, I think also certain pieces are require a lot of tinkering and a lot of massaging, and it might even take, you know, a year or so, you know, if it's personal music. And then some pieces just come completely born, right? I think someone mentioned, what's the author of Eat, Pray, Love? She has a TED Talk, Elizabeth Gilbert, right? Mm-hmm. She mentioned about the muse, right? How sometimes, you know, you would try to catch it, right, and just write it down as it is. So sometimes the piece will just download immediately, right? Mm-hmm. But ideally, you know, in a perfect world, we'd all be like Mozart, and we just like write down everything we're hearing, perfect. Or like Prince, yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has like a different approach, and one of the best I've heard was there were two. One was do I believe in what I just produced there, and then the second one was as long as there's nothing in the song that bothers me. So I think we've all got that before, right? It's like, oh, there's just that one part, there's just that few parts that's just bothering me. I think everyone's got that, right?
Oh, those are two very great questions. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a very good framework to think around. You know, what do I believe in what I've just made, right? And is there anything egregious, you know, that needs to be smooth?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and that can only happen when you actually listen to the song and, like, you know, maybe using your phone and your headphones and not in front of the computer. And then, yeah, I like to listen to the songs that I write while I'm in the shower, so that I can't actually do anything apart from like shower and to listen to the songs, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, that part there, it's too loud, violins are, you know, too soft or too subtle, or that doesn't sound right, it's not sounding like it should. And I think, yeah, I think it's quite accurate, and it's quite helpful to hear that, because I think for me, as long as nothing in the song bothers me, I think that's like one indication of a song being complete. And then the next is, do I believe in what I just wrote? Is it conveying the message that I initially wanted it to? And I think that's probably the two of the best that I've heard so far that really helped in terms of composition.
Beautiful. And I think you also went into the territory of mixing, which is a whole other, right? Always the string ladder and this and that. There also, I think what really helps me is to listen on different speakers, right? In the car, and the phone, and the computer, you know, all the monitors, because yeah, it can. You know, I went to audio engineering school, and they used to have us identify different frequencies, just boop, and you have to say, oh, the song. You know, and those kind of ear training, I think, is useful also to be able to identify, oh, okay, this needs to be cut out if I cut out. But I was surprised in mixing, you know, how much instead of, you know, adding to the EQ, actually notching out certain frequencies makes it sound cleaner than adding, you know. So, but I'm not a great mixer, I have to say, because my mixes tend to be very kind of too sharp, and I don't know. I think I best that to a real mixer.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that I think that's why it's a proper job, because as composers ourselves, we tend to be a bit biased as to what we want to hear more, and therefore we boost the frequencies and the volume of what we think should be heard more. But in reality, I think those the people who mix the song, I mean, outsiders who mix the song, they approach it from a neutral point of view, and they sort of balance everything out without being biased or anything. So it's a bad idea for us to do our mixes ourselves, because we would just boost whatever we want to hear more.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, same thing goes for mastering. And just, you know, I really believe it's good to take a step, you know, even just taking a few days even off from a song and coming back with new ears. Wish there was like a setting we could just clean our ears and come back to some fresh ears, you know?
Yeah. That can only be done with time, like you said. Just take a couple of days off and then come back to it, because you're kind of fresh in a sense. If not, then if you spend hours working on the same song, you're kind of deaf in some ways. Like, you know, you don't hear a lot of things. You're just tired, and then you're not as sharp as you would be from like how you were in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is not my, you know, really wheelhouse, but I'll do say, you know, that it also comparing, you know, your song and in a song that's kind of the same world, you know, genre, something you're going for, you know, side by side. I know people put the song even in the session to compare, right? It doesn't, you know, compare, you know, production wise, you know, so that's something to also keep in mind. And another point I'll make on the, you know, is there something egregious, or do I feel like it's conveying the message that I wanted to convey? I heard another producer say, have I removed everything that needed to be removed and still for it to remain have its integrity? So you remove everything that is maybe you realize you have all these tracks, but if you remove some of them, you don't even notice that much. So that helps with the clarity and things like that. Yeah, there's so many different approaches to this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's very interesting, because that's what I learned in interior designing. So, okay, so then music is kind of my hobby. My main job is actually being an interior designer. So I remember the prof telling me once, like, everything that's there has to have a reason to be there. So every time we have a presentation, the critics will come in as a devil's advocate, and it's like, okay, why this? Why a straight line? Why not a curved line? Why red? Why not blue? And things like that. So, and then it's just forcing us to kind of work with a limited palette, and where we sort of have to push the boundaries of whatever minimal tools we have, and making the best out of it before we try to conceal it with like a million other things, that may not really add to the composition in the end.
That's very, very well said. Limitations, I believe it's very inspiring, actually. Having limitations gives a structure, and this one tabla teacher, Amina Ji from Fanafiala, she told me that, I asked her, what is a rag? It's a very huge question, but one answer could be that it's a kind of a limitation, so that you can, in the universe of possibilities, create within kind of this specific rule of creativity, and that, there's just infinite possibilities there too, right? It's a game you play with yourself also. See how much can I create with this particular limitation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those restrictions really help us sort of think out of the box and look at an instrument or specific tool in a way that we've never done before, because obviously in most cases we have the liberty to use everything and anything else, and I think with those restrictions really help push the boundaries of what we can do with a specific instrument.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing about this interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary wisdom that can be shared. I think a lot can be learned from different professions and see how it can be applied, So thank you for sharing that. At the same time, I know a lot of composers have these composing templates where you have hundreds and hundreds of instruments, and sometimes you need that freedom of hundreds of instruments to be able to come up with the exact thing that you're searching for, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things where there's no fixed approach. Again, it's art. You can do it in so many different ways. So it would be wrong to criticize another fellow artist's approach. So I think let's just agree that there's no one size fits all sort of solution, because one may be able to have the brains to write with 100 instruments at one go, and one for other people it may be just one instrument at a time. So it really varies from composer to composer, really.
Yeah, it's a very great point. I think it's individual. However, I will say I haven't met a creative who doesn't have some sort of a discipline or some sort of a practice, some depth that they've thought about and implemented in there. So no matter if you're putting limitations or if you have hundreds of instruments in your template, I think there's a certain commonality of rigor and discipline that is applies to the best artists.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were to meet, Uyanga, who just stepped foot in the States for the very first day, what advice would you give her?
That's a very interesting way to pose the question.
Yeah.
I would say go outside of your comfort zone. All the magic, all the learning, just practice, and be your own carrot. Okay, the context to that is Tina, I think she posted about this, instead of running after opportunities, make your own carrot so unique and yummy and tasty that all the rabbits come to you, so to speak, right? So that's been definitely my way of working as a creative in the industry, I think. Whenever I try to chase after something, it just you're leaving yourself open to, it's just not the best way to go about, I think. So just make your own carrot, whatever that is, maybe as yummy and juicy and delicious and great as possible. Yeah.
Oh, that's a valuable piece of advice, and I'm sure that will empower and motivate a lot of people to keep going and stop comparing themselves with other artists, because obviously there's always that comparison of who's better, who produces better songs and things like that. And I think, like you said, the most important thing is to embrace who you are and to be the best version of yourself.
You nailed it. Be the best version of yourself, truly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that priceless piece of advice. And again, it always breaks my heart to say goodbye. So I would really like to thank you once again for making the time and taking the time to do this. And I really, really appreciate it. And I hope I managed to conceal my excitement well. And to be honest, it's so hard not to freak out, and that's why in the beginning of the interview I was like kind of like screwing up my questions, because I was like I was trying my best not to freak out, because like I said, I've been a long time fan of your work, and I was actually very, very surprised to get like a response from you. And then I was like, yes, like when I got it. And then so it was tough to sleep last night because I kept thinking about the interview, and I was like, I mustn't screw up. I mustn't screw up. I mean, I've done this like over 20 times with like various artists, but then I think you are one of the artists that I never thought I would be able to get on the show, and it's really, really a huge honor to be able to speak to a fellow artist who I've been looking up to for the past, really looking up to for the past few years. So really, really thank you, Uyanga.
Oh, I so appreciate your kind words. You're gonna make me blush. It's too much. But I really appreciate what you said, and I want to congratulate you on pursuing and creating, taking action, right? Bold action, if I dare say.
Bold action, literally.
I really admire that, the audacity of reaching out, the audacity of creating, the audacity of having conversations, of daring to add a value to the world, right? Value to yourself, to each other, adding positive information and interesting information and music. Right now, most of us are at home, so I think it's a great time to have conversations like these. It's a great time for people to connect, and my full support of what you're doing, and it's an honor to share and to talk and discuss with a fellow creative. I myself, I don't feel like I've reached even a small percentage of what I'm capable of. I'm learning every day, and I make sure that every gathering, anything that I'm doing, I can learn from it. So I think this was very educational for me too. So I hope it was educational for you and everybody who listens, and then if you can learn from it, it's the best.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Well, so thank you so much. I'm glad you had fun. I certainly did. So look forward to sharing this episode with, your fans, actually your fans. I'm sure they're dying to see this.
Both of our friends, all of our fans. Please follow me on Instagram at Uyanga Bold Music, UYANGAMUSIC Bold. Well, Uyanga Bold Music, as you can see. Instagram now, like it's a new thing. As you can see, I can't even spell out my own handle. Uyanga Bold Music. Please follow me.
All right,
we'll be in touch.
All right, keep in touch. Take care. Be safe.
You as well. Be well.